Believe it or not, we are more than 50% of the way through this course, and in this video we just want to take some time to look back at some of the ideas from Unit 2 and then give a quick preview of the things coming right now this week in Unit 3. So Unit 2 was about making and modifying curriculum. Obviously we can only go so far in 1 week on this topic. We chose to focus that week on backward design as one approach to building curriculum. One key idea about backward design is that you start with the end goals when you plan your curriculum rather than starting with the activities or the textbook that you will use with your students. But another key distinction between backward design and traditional curriculum design is that backward design focuses on student understanding rather than procedural skill as the end goal. This focus on understanding mathematics rather than just being able to compute answers successfully is made clear by the title of the McTee and Wiggins book, Understanding by Design. With regard to modifying curriculum, you had some great discussions on Canvas about the different reasons you modify or supplement your curriculum materials and the way that you do so. In nearly all the instances of modifying the curriculum, you were doing so because of some kind of attention to your students' needs. For example, some of you wanted to modify or supplement your curriculum or textbook to increase engagement or the challenge that your students felt. So you noted things like the textbook or the curriculum materials were boring or dry, and so you wanted to supplement things to increase student engagement. You tried to find things that asked more from your students because the textbook itself was not asking enough. You tried to find things that fit the students' needs or that differentiated to the particular students' needs that you had. And maybe the textbook you were using, some of you said, lacked real-world connections, and so you supplemented with things that maybe brought in more real-world connections or applications. Some of you also talked about supplementing to increase the opportunities for skill practice. So you said things like the test needs more skills than what the textbook requires, so you supplemented things to try to give more skill practice. Or the textbook didn't have very many straight up drill problems, and so you brought in some more drill problems. So it's interesting to think about the reasons that people supplemented like that, and overall you might talk about it as, or we might reflect on this as a way to balance procedural skill development with application problems, engaging, challenging problems, and finding that right balance. And maybe the textbook itself doesn't have the balance that you desire, and so you supplement to try to bring things more into balance. In terms of how you found your supplements, a lot of you talked about going online, looking at teacher blogs or math websites. People mentioned Teachers Pay Teachers and other teaching communities that are online. There also is the traditional face-to-face or non-technological way of finding resources or supplementing resources. So a lot of you talked about your colleagues and sharing things with each other. You could share in this class, but also sharing with colleagues in your building or other people that are teaching the same subject as you. But a lot of the supplementary materials were definitely coming from online sources, and so we just wanted to encourage everyone to use multiple criteria to evaluate those online materials critically. Don't just look for something that fits the right content goal, or hey, it's on the topic that I was looking for, and then use it. Bring a critical eye to that and think about what it's engaging the students in, what kind of thinking it's promoting, whether it's promoting rich mathematical activity and discourse. So using some of those criteria that we had from the Tar et al. Article last week, you can apply those to really critically evaluate online materials. There are a lot of bad materials out there, and so you don't want to just grab something that happens to fit, which I know you're not doing, but you can be busy. There can be so much stuff to sift through that sometimes you're just happy to find something that addresses the right standard. And we can all just push ourselves a little bit further to try to bring a critical eye to what it is that you're using as supplements. And because we are all regularly looking for and finding these supplementary materials to use with our students, we should actually start thinking of that as part of the identity of being a teacher. Being a teacher is not just how you enact something with students, or it's not just how you interact with students in the classroom. Being a teacher, and one of the skills of being a good teacher, is actually being able to find high quality resources and being able to know where to find them, know them when you see them, and then be able to implement them in the classroom. But that's a good skill to have, and a skill that can be developed is to be a good searcher and a good finder and a good evaluator of online resources. If you don't want to spend so much time sifting through all the online resources that are out there, much of which is pretty bad and procedural or not connected to the specific interests of your students, then you might choose instead of being a good searcher and sifter, you might instead decide to be a really good modifier of curriculum materials. So modifying what you do have and making it a little bit better than it is. So a good modifier of curriculum materials would find ways to ask questions and push students' thinking beyond just examples and rote exercises. They might find places for good mathematical discussions, or adjust a lesson so that it becomes about an investigation and a conjecture rather than just about a straightforward lecture on a topic. So those are two parts of a teacher identity, and you can kind of choose which one you want to develop the most robustly, to be a good searcher for resources or to be a good modifier of the textbook or the resources that you already have. Now a note about the course. We have one clarification that we want to make about discussions and the discussions that you'll have in Unit 3 and Unit 4. And this is kind of our fault because we weren't clear enough from the start. But in the discussion forums on Canvas, you do not necessarily need to respond to every individual prompt. Our intention is more for the prompt at the top of the discussion forum to just give you several possible footholds for sharing your initial thoughts, and then you all can take it from there. So you can pick and choose which one you want to respond to, especially in your first post. And after that, you can either touch on the other questions in the prompt, or you can just respond to other people's posts. So take those more as a suggestion rather than definitive questions that you have to answer all of them. In fact, you might even make your posts about the idea in general and not necessarily respond directly to any of the questions. Overall, we just hope that you have a sense of freedom to make the discussion space your own, with our initial prompts just taken as suggestions. Now looking ahead to Unit 3, which is going on this week, it deals with standards and assessment, which are the king and queen of curriculum, I would say. So in Unit 3, you'll read an essay by Bob Rees, who's an emeritus professor right here from Mizzou, and then there will also be a discussion forum on that reading. There's also a discussion forum about how you use assessment data in your teaching or at your school. And then there are two assignments for Unit 3. There's an assignment that involves analyzing some official standards that you get to choose, and then there's an assignment analyzing some standardized assessment items. The details on those assignments are posted in the assignment page on Canvas, and those are both due by the end of the day Sunday. Let us know if you have any questions on them.